Greetings everyone, T2 here. I was going to do a quick review of Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I've not actually finished it yet. I'll finish it this weekend. I've got about 200 pages left, so I've read quite a few of the short stories. And I wanted to talk about them and get them out of the way because I'm going to do a video here shortly about the Stephen King multiverse, because I've been thinking about it a lot. And I kind of got off onto some rabbit trails. I've made some charts. And there's other people that made a bunch of charts, but it's crazy. The connections between all of Stephen King's books is crazy enough, but then I'm going to try to relate it to like some real world kind of shit, maybe. So just going through the table of contents here, these different stories. It's really weird because the first one is called Dolan's Cadillac. And this sounded exactly like what I thought Roadwork was, because I read Roadwork a long time ago and I was like, this is almost the guy. He's like, his wife is going to testify against this gangster and he puts dynamite to her ignition and blows her up, kills her, and then he gets his job as a road construction guy. He gets all buff and muscly and like digs this big grave for this guy on a detour because he's got this like armored Cadillac because he's like a mobster, and he's always like paranoid about somebody trying to kill him. And I remember in the Roadwork there was something similar to that, but there was like these milk jugs full of gasoline. That's where I learned about how explosive gasoline is in Roadwork. But that wasn't in this story, so I don't know if maybe I read this as a kid and I got it mixed up with Roadwork, because then I got my copy of Roadwork out and I was trying to flip through it and then none of it looked familiar. So maybe I need to reread it. Maybe it's like a different book than I'm imagining. So it's really cool when he finally gets the guy, and like, I don't want to tell you too much about it, but that was a really good story. End of the Whole Mess was the second one. I'm trying to remember what that was about. What the shit? I don't even remember this one. Oh yeah, it was about this kind of water they found in South America that's supposed to make everybody calm, and they put it in a volcano, and it was like going to rain on the world and make the whole world like end of all the problems of the fighting in the world, and like they didn't research it enough, and it had like this side effect where you would get the thing that I have right now where you can't remember shit. That disease where you can't remember stuff. What's it called? I don't know. I think it's what it was. Maybe it was some kind of other disease. Anyway, it's kind of messed up. Suffer the Little Children, third story. This one was really good. And this one reminded me that everybody says Stephen King writes horror. I didn't really see it that way, because I've maybe read 40% of Stephen King's books. Most of them aren't really scary. They're not like gothic horror. Like, I guess there's a few that are like vampires and zombie kind of things, but it's not really, it's more like paranormal, supernatural fiction before the young adult genre kind of stole all that crap, made it about sparkly vampires and high school romances. The creepiness, it's just real creepy, his writing. And this one is one of all these stories here reminded me that it is kind of like, these are all like horror. This is kind of what he's known for, as being a horror. There's this whole thing about like Stephen King at one point, there's a period of time where he was like an alcoholic and he did a lot of coke. And some people say that was like the best writing he ever did, I think. Maybe that was the worst. Some people think it's the worst, some people think it's the best. I don't know. But I'll get to that in a second, because there's another story here. So Suffer the Little Children is about this teacher, and she's like, you know how like you look in the corner of your glasses, you can kind of see behind you sometimes, and she's like writing on the chalkboard, and she sees all the kids like talking behind her, you know, and she can like call them out on it. And this one kid, he starts smiling at her really big, and like she sees him like change and like transform or something, and she gets freaked out. And like imagine you're a teacher, right? And she can't really call him out directly on it or something. And the kid comes up and there's like, there's more of us. There's like 12 of us in the class. You wouldn't believe it. He's like, what? So she gets freaked out, like she's thinking her kids are like possessed by aliens, right? And he just like smiles at her really big, and she's like freaking out. And he's just like smiling at her. And then like the next day, he's like, you wouldn't believe how many of us there are now. It's like almost everyone. I was like, what in the hell? So she starts taking all the kids down to the basement and killing them all. Yeah, so you don't know if she's like freaking out, if she's like a psychopath, if she's like hallucinating it, or if it's real. Really scary. And the next story is called The Night Flyer. That one I made like a movie about it. I tried to watch the movie, but it was like in a foreign language, so I didn't understand it. It's about a guy who's tracking a vampire down because these mysterious killings that are happening, and all of it's connected to this airplane that he's figured out, and tracks the tail number down, and he has to he's flying a plane like following it, and he almost crash lands because a storm kicks up right as he's about to get to it, and then he goes in there and it's like everybody's killed, and then he goes into the bathroom and there's like blood just like pissing onto a urinal, and there's like there's invisible vampire in there. That was a pretty cool scene. Kind of gross though. Popsy was the next story. Man, have I already forgotten this one? Popsy. Oh yeah, it's about a guy who kidnaps a kid. He's kidnapping kids, but the kid is like the son of a vampire. How do vampires have kids? He must have like made him into a vampire because vampires don't have sex. It Grows on You. Man, I just read this like last weekend. I'm already like forgetting stuff. What was this one about? Castle Rock. Oh, there's this guy. He's building this house, and what was it? Every time something bad would happen, like the house would be getting a new wing on it. Like it's a really rich guy. It kind of reminded me of that story, like a real life story of the Winchester house. The woman who her husband owned the Winchester Firearms Company. They felt really guilty about making the gun that killed thousands of people over time, like in wars and whatever. So she thought she was haunted by the spirits of all the people that the Winchester guns had killed, so she keeps adding rooms to her house. They made a movie about it, and it's like the rooms are supposed to be so like random that there's like stairs leading to nowhere, and windows that look like doors and stuff. It's just like it's supposed to confuse the ghosts so they get lost in it. So she just constantly was like adding on to it her whole life because they were extremely wealthy. That's what this story's kind of about. There's a story called Chattery Teeth. About a guy who he's at this weird store in the middle of nowhere, and he buys these big chattery teeth, and he picks up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker tries to rob him, and the chattery teeth come alive and like save his life. Then he like he wants the teeth and take it home to his kid so they can protect his kid. It's pretty weird. Then you got Dedication. What was that one about? Somebody that wrote a dedication in the front of a book, right? I feel like I haven't even read this. I keep forgetting everything. Oh man, I just heard the funniest story, by the way. I was listening to the podcast. What was he talking about? There was some Stephen King story about a postman. I don't even remember this one. But it was like the postman something or other, and he's like about a kid getting molested when he was 8. And he'd like listen to this audiobook of it for days, and he's like, him and his girlfriend were going on a trip. He's like, hey, I really want to listen to the end of this this book I've been listening to, an audiobook. Do you care? She's like, no, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck what you do. He's like, okay. So he puts it in, and the end of the story is him describing getting molested by this guy. He's talking about the jelly going up his butthole. Like a kid, and his girlfriend was just like staring at him like, what in the fuck? Like, you shouldn't make audiobooks because they're so intimate, books are, that they get inside people's heads and you see shit that's like you shouldn't even talk about. Man, it was the most funniest thing I've heard all year, probably. This was a really rambly video. Man, I cannot remember this story. I'm reading it right now and I was like, none of this looks familiar. I guess I didn't read this one. I don't know. Fuck it. It must have been really bad, that one. Okay, The Moving Finger. This one's about a guy who keeps seeing a finger coming out of his bathroom sink. And then his wife goes in there and brushes her teeth and she doesn't see it. So we don't know if it's real or not. Or maybe it's going back down when she's in there. Anyway, it gets freaking him out more and more. And he goes in there and he just, his wife leaves. And it keeps getting longer too. It's coming out even longer. And he needs to like grab these like hedge clippers and the scissors or something. And he like cuts it. And then his neighbors get freaked out because he's screaming and yelling. And the police come. And he's like, don't want to go in there. When he go in there, it's like covered in blood. So it looks like he's killed somebody, but they don't know who he killed. And then I think they see something moving in the toilet. That's kind of how it ends. The police are checking it out. Because the police are seeing all the blood, so it must have been real. Sneakers is the next story. I have no fucking clue. What the fuck is Sneakers? Did I read this book at all? I know I read this. I must have been asleep at work, just like pretending to read. I don't know. I don't remember this one at all. Yeah, I remember some of it. I don't remember what the fuck it was about, though. Oh, this is the one I didn't like. It was about a guy in a music studio. Yeah, and he kept, like, going up. Yeah, right. This one, he kept going up to the third floor of this music studio to use the bathroom. And he'd always see this pair of sneakers in the men's room. With the, like, dead flies on it and shit. So every time he'd go up there, like 4 months later, he goes up there and they're still there. He's like, well, it must be like a ghost or something. He didn't want to look in there and he didn't want to ask anybody about it. And then the guy he's working with kind of grabs his dick and gets all gay. So then he, like, finally asked the guy at a bar or something nearby that knew about it. And he was like, yeah, you know about the ghost? And he told him the story of it. So he finally looks in there and he sees the ghost. And then, like, talks to him. Tells him how he died. He was like a drug dealer for all these like musicians. Then the story, you know, they got a hell of a band, is about a man and a woman. They're going down this road to this place and they get lost. And they end up in this, like on the grass. The road ends and they see the sign. He's like, well, just keep going. Let's not turn around. And then there's this town called Rock and Roll Heaven. Which sounds like made up. And his wife super freaked out. She didn't want to go in there. And it turns out the town is kind of like a Venus flytrap, or not a Venus flytrap. What's the one that's like a big jar? You get caught in it. It's like one of those plants that sucks people in. There's like other people there besides them. But there's also the ghost of every musician that's ever died from like drug overdoses, plane crashes, and car crashes. And they kind of trap people there because they want to play music for them, and like they play music for like a year, 4 years or something in a row. It's just like drives you crazy. You can't leave. So all the other people there is like, you got to get out while you still can, but they can't. You can't leave because Elvis Presley's like the mayor, and Otis Redding is the police, the sheriff, and like they stop you and they bring you back. It's pretty fucked up. Then you got Home Delivery. This one I don't remember being that good. Oh, yeah. There was like... It's Star Wormwood. There was like this asteroid in space made out of worms or something. And like all this like zombie apocalypse happening while this woman's pregnant. And she ends up saying she's going to give birth to the baby at home. I think. This one kind of jumped all over the place. Yeah. Then rainy season. Did I read this one? Oh yeah, rainy season. People go to this town and they tell them maybe you want to come back tomorrow because it's rainy season today in this town. It rains toads, and didn't believe them. And like they always do this, it's like a ritual. People show up and they tell them and they don't believe them, and then it rains a bunch of toads on them, and the frogs have these sharp teeth and they just eat you. And then you got My Pretty Pony, which was about I don't remember. I don't think I read this book. This is the worst review. I don't know. I don't remember. I remember somebody saying something about a pretty pony. Oh, yeah. It was about, like, time goes slower when you're an adult than when you're a kid. If you say My Pretty Pony, makes time go the right way or something. I don't know, dude. I don't remember if this one had a plot to it. I think it's just the old man talking a bunch. The next one was trash. The next one was just like a screenplay of a woman calling herself from the future. Sorry, right number. It was really easy to read though because it was short. Alright, now to the good part. The 10 o'clock people. This one was about this guy who's like trying to quit smoking. And he gets like in between like a smoker and a non-smoker, like just the right amount of chemicals in his brain where he can start seeing these people that turn into bat people. Like they have bat heads or something, and like they're all, I don't know if they're like vampires or like what they are, if they eat people. But he finds out there's a whole group of people that can do this. They're like trying to quit smoking. And he calls them the 10 o'clock people. And they go to this big underground meeting to discuss the bat people. And it turns out it's a trap. They were set up. And this guy thought he was going to like form an alliance with them or get amnesty or whatever. And then they attack and kill them all. I think one of them got away, or several of them got away, and they started a whole group again. But this was the one that really resonated because it reminded me of the Dark Tower. Because there's these people called the let me see, what was it called? The Taheen, or the Low Men, like the Low Men in Yellow Coats was another story that he wrote. And they were like people that had birds for heads, and there's all kinds of different like animal human hybrid kind of people from it. So that was the one that probably the best. And then Crouch End is the next one. That one I think also has a connection. I wasn't really sure what it was though, because it probably connects to something else I haven't read. It's the last one I read and I can't remember what the fuck happened. What is the purpose of reading if you can't remember what the fuck you just fucking read? I mean, goddamn. I should just quit. What the hell? This is like really looks like something I would remember too. I don't remember it at all. Wait. Oh, this is one that's kind of like Cthulhu. Yeah, it has something to do with like Lovecraftianness. It must have went right over my head because I didn't know what the hell was going on in this one. The problem when you're reading at work is that you're like, it's 4 in the morning and you're about to go to sleep and you're just reading and not paying attention, I guess. You're thinking about other shit. Yeah, I mean, I read all this, but I don't remember a goddamn word of it. So, that's a complete waste of time, apparently, is reading short stories. I've kind of got burnt out on Stephen King because I'm reading, like, all these different stories is different. And it seems like it makes you feel like you're reading a whole bunch of books. Usually I'll read one Stephen King book, and then I'll read, like, something sci-fi in between, kind of like a palate cleanser, and then I'll go to something else. But, I mean, I do remember all his other books because I've got this whole chart I'm looking at right now, and it's fucking massive. So I'll make a new video right after this. We'll talk about that.